So I'm delighted to be joined in this episode by Glenn Hurst, who is lecturer and assistant professor at University of York in the UK. Glenn, delighted to catch up with you because we met each other a week ago.
That's right. Thanks so much for inviting us to speak this afternoon.
So you delivered a wonderful presentation at the Trinity is Social event at Trinity College Dublin, as I mentioned. Let's give the listeners and viewers a little bit of background in how long you've been using social media for your academic work, because I have to admit, organic chemistry is not the sexiest topic. However, when you bring it alive on social media, it's pretty interesting.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've been utilising social media for academic work for about 3 years now, so not particularly long, since about May 2015. And initially, I was quite reticent to actually share personal information such like online. I was very careful about that. But now, having realised the benefits, I feel as though it's really quite a powerful tool for both me to learn as a starting point, and also to facilitate learning. So I actually started with Twitter, and that's been great for my own continuing professional development and actually engaging with the chemical and more general science education community. And it's really evolved for application with my actual students. And you mentioned organic chemistry there. I mean, as I say, I'm focusing on learning at the moment. And the reason I particularly started with social media is just that it's so ubiquitous among the student population that they're using it so much within their own personal lives. And I felt as though, well, there was three main driving forces for us to utilize it in a learning environment. One was to try and enhance the communication skills of the students, and we try to do that by getting the students to produce their own YouTube videos for, say, answering an actual lecture problem, and a mechanism for me to provide feedback to students, and also, as I've tried to do with organic chemistry, to engage the students with why and how this organic chemistry is actually relevant in their everyday life by trying to show real-world examples. And social media has been absolutely fantastic in giving us a vehicle to try and achieve that.
So I love to hear you admit that you were reticent. Personally, you didn't want to go online, but once you discovered the benefits, for your own CPD, but then academically you were bought in. Did your enthusiasm spread throughout the university?
Yes, I think actually based upon the projects that I actually started. So I've actually mentioned the YouTube one there. Another project was actually recently utilising Snapchat, and this has been extremely powerful mode to actually engage with the undergraduate students. So what I did was formed a class account, and there was kind of four main purposes of this account that the students followed. The first, as I've mentioned, was to kind of get the students to contextualize the subject matter in the real world. And I did this by sharing pictures and also videos of, say, kitchen chemistry experiments, or indeed, I love playing golf. So I was talking about the actual chemistry behind golf when I was actually playing on a weekend. Also, I've tried to use Snapchat to actually show the students experimental techniques that they'll be subsequently doing in a future lab session. I've used it to give them a glimpse into what life is like in actual research labs, and be able to share the expertise from older students, from, say, postgraduate students, and that'll also give them a glimpse into what it's going to be like when they subsequently do research in the later years. So we're trying to scaffold that, and also try to just share more of my professional life, and hopefully that'll lead to the students kind of humanizing me. And so in terms of what the students think about this, is they really like utilizing YouTube because they become global educators. So not only are they doing it as part of an assessment, or in some cases it might not necessarily have to be part of an assessment, but they're actually teaching others. So as well as developing the communication skills, there's benefits there. And in terms of the work on Snapchat, they say that they feel more engaged with the actual degree programme, and that they have an actual deeper understanding of the actual chemistry by seeing the way that it's been applied. So looking at how perhaps staff have actually viewed this, I think that there perhaps is an initial barrier to customizing oneself to how social media works if you've never used it before. But the actual platforms that I've been utilizing are just so easy. And I think that's helped other staff to actually adopt these platforms in their own, be it teaching, dissemination of, say, research outcomes, looking for collaborations, advertising the actual department, yes. And as part of my work with Snapchat, I was lucky enough to get a JISC Times Higher Education Social Media Award, and that was really great at getting that message out there, both institutionally and externally too. And based on that, the feedback that I've had so far is that these social media platforms are enabling, in the sense that instructors want to actually try it out because it's so easy and because they've seen how well it's worked with the students at chemistry at York.
So I was going to ask you, have you become a better lecturer? But I think that you have, because you're enabling, facilitating, and seeking out engagement with your students. So I think you've totally answered that question. But let's talk about the internal processes and what you had to go through to bring, your job and social to where it is now, because that surely didn't happen overnight.
No, I mean, what I would say is there was an institutional social media policy which we do have to abide by. And I think that can get particularly hairy when, for example, you include faces. So pretty much all of the faces that I've sent via Twitter, Instagram or Snapchat have been my own, or directly asked permission of, say, researchers. This is what we're going to use this video or image for. Are you happy with it? And so that was a small point just in terms of faces, but actually getting buy-in for this was challenging. And I think I was perhaps in a luckier position than perhaps similar colleagues in other departments, because we already utilize social media for admissions and to promote what we do, and it works. So I was perhaps lucky that I simply just wanted to apply it to help student learning. And so by putting a case forward to our colleagues, and bearing in mind this was going to enhance our departmental use of e-learning, which needed to be better, I actually managed to get that buy-in that way. But I would say if you do want to try it out, my key message is it's quite easy. Particularly Snapchat, I mean, it's effectively a very similar interface than just taking a photo with your actual phone, and all you subsequently do is annotating that and sending it off. So in terms of the amount of time that I had to dedicate to physically doing it, it's minimal. It's a couple of minutes.
Yeah, versus the return that you're getting, of course, for yourself and for your students. So let's talk about the app that was developed at the University of York. And this has proven very worthwhile in terms of attracting international students. I was very interested in that part of your presentation.
Absolutely, yeah. So this was a collaboration with our Department of Theatre, Film and Television, and effectively it was a student that came to work for us as part of a 8 to 10 week summer project. So in terms of the finances for ourselves, we paid that student. The whole project mustn't have came more than actually $2,000. And effectively, what we were able to do was to create a Chemistry at York admissions app, which is free to download on the iOS and Android platforms. And it was aimed at applicants and visitors to the Department of Chemistry. Now, a lot of this was perhaps compartmentalizing existing resources. But what we've found from the feedback is it's really helped us to stand out compared to other departments and universities. And students are starting to say, wow, we haven't actually seen another department do this. This department's really committed to the student experience, which is absolutely great from our perspective. But Also, as you mentioned, international students, more than half of the actual downloads are from outside of the UK. And attracting international students to the University of York Department of Chemistry is one of our key agendas. So anything that can help to actually achieve that is great from our perspective. And we've been very lucky in that biology at York are actually developing a similar app too. So it's quite nice that they can use that framework and we can transfer that expertise to benefit others.
And what you're doing is amazing, because you're going niche with the subject matter and with the topics to attract the right people, as opposed to just having an app for the entire university, which might not convert and might not get you as many chemistry students. So it's very clever.
That's absolutely it, yes. Hopefully.
So what's your vision for the next 12 months? What are you hoping to achieve? You know where you are now, but what's coming for you guys down the line?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm really interested in game-based learning. So we've developed a different app called Organic Fanatic, and effectively, that's for students to play and learn organic chemistry. And we want to utilize social media so that they can cross-post the results of the actual game. And again, you can have, for example, competitions between students, or indeed, it's another mechanism for us to provide feedback. So I'm interested in utilizing social media in terms of a blended approach with games and seeing how that goes. And another strand that we're looking at, and this isn't perhaps as novel, we're going to be starting an actual faculty-wide research group. And so I want to be able to utilize social media, primarily Twitter, to be able to disseminate research outcomes and also network with similar groups globally. So that's how I intend to use social media, say, over the next 12 months or so.
So you guys are converted, but we're going to have some people listening and watching who are totally not converted, and usually they ask the questions that are based around fear. What kind of nuggets of advice or support can you give them if they want to be where you are now in a couple of years, or even to leapfrog and be there in 12 months? What would you say to them?
I think make sure that there's a clear policy in place to start with, and that you're aware of that. But I would say the implementation is really easy. It really is. So there isn't much of a barrier to get over there. And the rewards that we've had so far, not only being able to enhance the actual learning, for example, of our students, but have an impact on others, says that it really is quite significant. And I think what we've really tried to do is, and obviously you don't have to do this all at once, a combinatorial approach to different social media platforms. So we're utilizing, for example, Facebook to engage with our more adult learners or alumni. And these are the sort of patterns that we seem to be observing, in that certain social media platforms are used by different age groups. So as I say, Facebook is particularly for alumni, where we can get donations through, for example. And we're particularly utilising, say, Snapchat and Instagram for applicants and for our students, because that's what they are actually using. But what I would say is, personally, I still don't like sharing much personal information on social media. And I am still very careful about doing that. But I have demonstrated that I can make a significant impact in terms of disseminating work that's being done, advertising what the department and university do, forming collaborations and student learning, without perhaps compromising, in my opinion, my personal life.
And, think about it. A student who, reads a website or watches a video or reads a brochure, but nothing compares to you bringing them into a lab and then being able even to watch tutorial videos that you're creating for your students. You're actually giving them a real sense of what life might be like if they studied your subject, but also if you come to the university. So, well done you for taking on that challenge and stepping up to it. Final question for you. What trends will you be keeping an eye on in terms of social media? What do you think's hot right now and useful to the higher education sector?
Difficult question. I think in terms of what I'm looking at the moment is usage of different apps. So as I mentioned, Facebook is something we're particularly using to target adult learners and alumni. So I think keeping a pulse on that and finding out what our target audience are using and adapting our practice as appropriate. But I think what we also need to be aware of are the new capabilities of these apps as they are constantly being updated. So, for example, the fact that there are now, well, it was quite a while ago this update, but significantly more characters on Twitter. That's been a big help for us in terms of giving detailed feedback to students. And the fact that on Snapchat, for example, I think it used to be just a 10-second video and that was it. But now you can actually couple, say, 6 videos together, and that has heavily influenced the amount of detail that we can, say, provide. You mentioned, for example, showing students a glimpse in research labs. We can do a proper video that's articulated and commented on now that we've got that longer time period. And as you say, we're able to give a glimpse into the world of research for hundreds of students at York and externally too by using social media. We can give them that bird's eye view, which would not be possible without it, really. So it's been game-changing for us. It really has.
Glenn Hurst, who is lecturer and assistant professor at the Department of Chemistry in the University of York in the UK, thank you for being so generous with your insights and your time and for joining me on JSB Talks Digital. This is going to be a super episode, and I think that lots of your peers and English-speaking countries will be picking this up, and you might find yourself getting a few new followers.
Thanks, Joanne.